Once again, the purpose of today's study is to take a look at the different parameters and aspects in getting ready for the PMP exam. Now, the PMP exam is well known. It is the most widely known project management certification in the world. And for that reason, it's very competitive. And since it's competitive, there are obviously going to be winners, and there are going to be people who can try again. Now, it's a very long journey getting certified, and I don't want to diminish its importance. I know there are a lot of people on social media that say, oh, it's easy, or it's not that difficult, or you don't need to do that or that. Obviously, such people are not very experienced in training project management, because what I can tell you about training in general, people have different ways of learning. For some people, all they need to do is listen to a 20-hour CD set, such as this. And this 20-hour CD project management set, they listen to it and they're like, oh, all the light bulbs have come on. I know where this is going. But you have other people who need to see it in text and read it over and over and over, very laboriously and painstakingly. There are people like that. And there are people who may not subscribe to a book such as that, such as the Pmbok guy. They say the language is too oblique. So we find them subscribing to our book, the Project Management Essentials book. And then you have people who say, no, I need both of them. You get what I'm saying? And then you have people who say, no, I don't just need those books. I need those books and this. And then we have people who say their exams were killed because they did not understand Agile enough. And in 2021, my friends, I can tell you that this tiny little flimsy looking component is going to weigh in over 50% of the puzzle, is going to be understanding the difference between hybrid, predictive, and agile. In other words, not just the material I've shown you, but understanding page 18 and being able to switch mentally between when am I talking agile? When am I talking predictive? When am I talking incremental? What is the difference between incremental and iterative? This understanding is going to go a very long way, because all of those tasks that the PMI is looking for you to do on the new exam, it is based on you understanding, when am I thinking agile? When am I thinking page 27, 28 in this book? When am I thinking straight ahead agile? And being able to sniff out the questions. So there's quite a lot that is going into the exam in 2021. It's not just page 25 alone. It is page 25 and then a massive thick layer of understanding what makes you agile. With a deep understanding of the manifesto, a deep understanding of the values that we esteem high in Agile, and those 12 principles of Agile, they are going to go a very long way. So I'm not here to alarm you, but I'm here to impress upon you that gone are the days when you'll say, oh, I'm only going to do that little bit, and I'll succeed. No, the chances of success are highly diminished, highly, with this new exam. So with all of that said, let's jump into taking a look at PMI site. And look, if you got questions along the way, those questions have to be addressed. Now, this session has been a long time coming. I tried to do this session last year, only for PMI to announce, oh, we're not changing the exam anymore. It's not going to be first, or whenever it was, whenever they said in 2020. Then they said, all right, we're going to move it. We're going to have a pilot exam. And the pilot exam came and whizzed by. And I had a lot of students who, unfortunately, due to COVID, they were meant to take the pilot, but they couldn't get to the test centers. So after developing a very robust course for this new exam, a lot of my students didn't take the pilot for the new exam. They ended up taking the current exam and they've passed, they've done well. But it helped me see that the training I put them through was very effective because a lot of them ended up taking it and passing the exam. But I want to show you on PMI side, let's actually go there now, what exactly this new exam is going to be about. What is the PMI looking for from you? When we talk about this new exam, what exactly does it entail? All right, so let's go ahead and take a look. For those of you on my group, I appreciate you joining. There is Sonia, one of my PMP gurus. let's have a quick shout out to Sonia. Sonia, look, if you want to unmute yourself, that's fine. I just want to give you a huge shout out and thank you for the tips that you recently shared. And if you haven't watched Sonia's tips that I presented a few days ago, you might want to go watch that video because I tell you that video is relevant to not just the current exam, but also the 2021 exam. She dropped a lot of gold in there. So Sonia, thank you for joining. And honestly, hey, Sonia, tell your colleagues to watch this video. Tell your colleagues, any of your colleagues getting ready for the exam, you need to tell them to watch this video because it is going to help them. All right. Oh, you can't unmute? Let's try that again. So you're the co-host, Sonia. You can if you want.
Yes. Hey, Phil, I just managed to
Hey,
unmute. How
PMP
are you?
guru. Woo!
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks to
Look,
you.
look, look. I had to listen again last night to the goal that you dropped. I had to, I recorded it. I listened to it once and then I went back. I'm like, wow, she drank the Kool-Aid. She really drank the Kool-Aid. You really did. So Sonia, tell me, you were not were you in the pilot class or were you in the class that came after it?
No, I think in a couple of classes after it, I joined in the summer course that started at the end of June, 24th or 25th. We had our first class. So that's when I
Mm,
joined.
gotcha. So how is life now that you're a PMP? How you finding life and how are things going?
It's definitely easier. There's not that pressure of studying for the exam. But I mean, that was a good phase to feel. It's a lot of learning and it's a lot of growth. So I enjoyed
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you for the mentoring and coaching and helping your colleagues, people who are in the class, helping them through. It's honestly a pleasure to just sit back. I'm like, wow, this lesson came from someone who has gone through the process. And me listening back to it, I'm like, this is quite profound. So you did a great job. And I don't know if you watched the video, but I told folks, tell Sonia you appreciate it, vote with your likes. And when it gets to 100, then we're going to let the second piece. You really did a great job. You got about 25 additional power tips that we haven't shared. Did you notice
Right.
that?
Right. I really applied myself during that. It was really important for me to clear the exam. And I'm one of those who likes to go into an exam with preparation. So, I took the time and sat down and made that. And that really helped me clear the exam, really, really did, because, I understood how PMI wanted me to answer the questions. It's their exam and they
Hmm.
want me to answer questions a certain way. And once I did the mock exam, a couple of times over, I also said this, in my lessons learned, that it's so
Yeah,
important to do the PMI mock. It was very
very.
helpful to me. It was very helpful to me, and it helped me formulate those rules.
I know.
And
Yeah.
yes. And so, because anytime I would get any question wrong initially I failed the PMI mock. And I would make sure I noted the part. I took a screenshot of the bottom part where they explained the reasoning behind why they wanted me to pick the answer that they thought was correct. And so it kind of clicked in my head, and that helped me formulate those rules and really remember them for the exam. When I was answering my questions, I knew exactly what the PMI wanted me to do, and that's how I got those 80s. And
Yeah.
um,
Pretty amazing and phenomenal. And honestly, I cannot tell you how excited I am because as I was going through the recording and listening back to it and just going through the process, I'm like, wow, I remember that question. I remember, and it's not as though you put the question in there, but you got the essence. You know what I mean? You got the essence, the ingredients, the core ingredients. I'm like, wow, this is something. This is priceless. So for those folks who have not listened to the most recent video, what did we call it, Sonia? I can't even remember. Rules for answering PMP
Yes.
exam questions. Yeah, I'm going to take that link and I'm going to put it in the chat right now for those friends of ours who are listening on YouTube Live. Let's go ahead and put that in there. So later on, I would advise that you check out these rules that Sonia's put together. And then there's more. There's part 2, which is 25 things. Is it things to do, right?
It's things to know. So I think after I gave my exam, my final exam, obviously I knew what the questions were, and then I added to this. I found these things really important and relevant,
Mm.
and everybody's exam is different.
Yeah, yeah,
But you always, there's a course content outline, and
yeah.
how they score it based on the percentages for that.
Uh-huh.
And I
Yep.
feel like integration is so important. So I think in my those tips I must have
Yeah.
mentioned, especially initiating, closing,
Yes.
and all that, identify stakeholders and how important it was to me, and
Mm,
how it helped me score the way I did. So
absolutely.
that's, yeah.
Yeah. I really look forward to getting the visibility up of those tips, because I think they really help. You've been there. You went through a hell of a time in getting certified. It was horrible. What you went through was horrible. I mean, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. I mean, honestly, it was tough. And I continued to feel bad day after day. And then I'm like, oh my goodness, that's it. I've lost her. She's probably not going to take this thing again. And then you came back. And then I'm like, thank goodness. And then that happened again the second time. And then the third time, I'm like, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut, but I'll keep encouraging in the class. But I didn't want to pressure you, saying, when are you going to take it? Are you going to take it? When are you going to take it? So for those who don't know, it's not as if Sonia took it once, twice, 3 times. No, no, no. The first time, the proctor didn't show up. The second time, the computer had an issue. And that's why I kept telling people, you might not want to take this thing at home. It's crazy. Maybe you just need to go to a test center. And while I was thinking, perhaps I'm going to have to keep pleading for the extension, because I was always thinking about you. You just told me you passed. I'm like, what? Passed?
Right,
It was a
right.
shock, because I didn't even know you were going to take it the third time as quickly as, well, I didn't know you were going to try to take it. Let's make it very clear. Sonia took it one time and got 80s, right? But before she took it on that date, she had tried to get it on her computer at home. Didn't work. So very frustrating, but look at it now, your PMP. So are you thinking of doing anything after, Sonia? Thinking of going for anything else now that you're PMP?
I'm going to take the PSM. I'm certified Scrum Master, and
Yes, I
then
saw that.
there's professional Scrum Master.
Mhm.
So that's one level up. So I'm
Yeah,
just wanting to do that, in the next few days.
great stuff. So I mean, you didn't go for any course. It's Ken Schwaber's certification on his site. So are you going for his course, or are you just going to jump in, lunge in, and do it?
I think I can do this. I think I've got the work ethic down to
There you
study. So
go.
yeah. So I think
There
I'm
you
just
go.
going to do it.
There you go.
Plus I do know Scrum fundamentals. Those are clear in my
Lovely,
head. And
lovely.
so if I just kind of, understand the Scrum guide really
Uh-huh.
well, I think I should be able to do PSM as well.
Awesome.
We'll see. I'll let you know. I'll keep you
Awesome. Let me
posted.
know. I'll give you a few tips, because I mean, I took mine not too long ago. Really read the Scrum Guide, and a new version of the Scrum Guide just came out. In fact, we're just about to put up the audio version of the Scrum Guide November 2020. It changed from 18 pages down to 13 pages. So Ken and Jeff have
Wow.
obviously been cooking that up and whittling it down, and it looks very good. It looks good. 13 pages. I mean, it just goes to show you PMI's Agile Practice Guide is 100 plus pages, Pmbok Guide 700 pages, Scrum Guide just 13 pages. So those of you listening, I mean, I'm sure you're looking forward to me sharing more, but I take my PMPs, my gurus, people who have given back, I take them very seriously. So I did want to acknowledge Sonia for the great contribution she made a few days ago. So Sonia, thank you very much. Can you drop some gold for the folks on the call? Give them one tip to get certified in 2020 or 2021. What would you say?
If I had to give one tip, I would say just believe in yourself and don't you give up. You got this. If you make up your mind, there's nothing that can stand in your way. As you heard from Phil, I tried taking the exam twice with technical issues. Once the proctor didn't come, once, even though my computer passed the system test, the exam didn't launch. So I was more determined than ever. And I think if I can do it, you can do it as well. I keep saying that, just do it in 2020 and finish it off. Just you need to put that time in, just one time, and then you'll be done. Because once you've given the exam, you're going to clear it. If you just apply yourself these few days, it takes a little bit of studying, it takes a little bit of applying yourself, but at the end of it, you'll definitely feel like you've learned so much more, and you'll be more confident with your project management skills. So it's totally a win-win.
Awesome. Thank you, Sonia. That is really profound. You got to have confidence in yourself. And it's funny you said that because one of our students, and he knows who he is, but he recently sent me an email and said, Phil, I'm really trying my best. I'm scared of failing. So it goes back to what you just said. You got to be confident in yourself.
We all are, we all are but that keeps us on our toes, right? Because
Mhm.
then we study even harder. So it's not such a bad thing to be a little bit scared, but you have to go out and do it, because you won't know unless you try. I mean, you may fail, but
Mhm.
you wouldn't even get there if you didn't try and give the exam. So give it your best shot. Apply yourself for a few days, I mean, couple of weeks.
Mhm.
Make a good study plan. Phil, your material is phenomenal. It's very
Thank
helpful. Once we get through your material, there's no way anybody can fail if you're seriously really studying your material and
you.
listening to the videos and the audio. So and
Mhm.
like you say, drink the Kool-Aid. If you drink the Kool-Aid, I think maybe 3 weeks is what you need
Yeah,
if you really applied yourself.
true. Absolutely. Sonia is a product of the process. She went through the process very meticulously, and she's speaking to you not just to make you feel good, but she's dropping gold. If you follow the process, you succeed. I mean, it's almost like foolproof. It's almost foolproof. So, Sonia, once again, thank you very much. I know your colleagues are going to benefit from what I'm going to share here today. I'm going to show people why this exam is going to be significantly different. We're going to talk about a few of the ingredients for the new exam coming up. So thank you. If you have anything to drop in, if you're going to be watching, feel free to just drop it in or throw it in the chat, and I'm sure our students will appreciate it. Thank you so much, and all the very best on the PSM. I know you're going to kill it. You might have you taken Ken's practice exams for the PSM?
Yes, I took one. I scored a
Oh,
75%.
cool. That's a good sign. That's a good sign. So yeah, I think his passing score is what, 80? Um,
80.
what I can tell you on my exam, on my PSM exam, I had 30 minutes left and I had 50 questions left. Do you know why? Because instead of plowing right through, I was busy thinking about other things and trying to find out, okay, the Scrum guide, does it have? No, ignore the Scrum guide. So it's an open exam, but ignore the Scrum guide. Otherwise, time will run out. As Roy said, our trainer Roy says, if you don't know where it is and you start opening that Scrum guide, you're going to be in trouble. You just ignore it and we'll go with your gut. And that's what I did. I had 30 minutes left and I had 50 questions. So I was answering roughly 25 questions in 15. It was crazy. So I just ignored any impulse to look anywhere and I just went with my gut and that was it. But there are people who have gone like almost a perfect score. So it is doable. But the Scrum
Mhm.
guide, since it's changed, I don't know how much of the PSM is going to be based on the new, but I'm sure Ken will probably say Scrum is Scrum, even know it or not. So, have you watched some of his videos to kind of get into the essence of his beliefs? It's quite an
Yes,
interesting guy.
yes,
Quite an
yes.
interesting guy, indeed. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much, Sonia. And if you have anything to drop in, looking forward to it. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So those of you on YouTube, I know you've been waiting for us to talk about this new exam. So why don't we go over to PMI's website? Let's go over to the page for PMP. And here we are. This is it right here. All right. So project management professional, the PMP certification exam is changing on 2nd of January, 2021. You have until 31st of December 2020 to take the current project management professional exam. And then it says find out what's changing. And if you click on this, it goes to a page to break it down further. Says PMI is committed to the safety and well-being of our global community. We're talking about the COVID-19 impact on the exam and so on. But then it goes to apply for the PMP certification today, review PMP exam tips, resources, and FAQs, and get training, PMI registered education providers. Now, full disclaimer, right now, we are registered education providers, right? My company, we're registered education providers, but this program is actually going to be going away, right? It's actually going to be going away. So the information here is not as accurate, but I wanted you to know if you are looking to get certified in 2021, you need to be part of my project management masterclass. Okay. I'm going to be putting out information about it. The website's going to be projectmanagementmasterclass.com. It's not up just yet, but by the time we get done with today's affairs, you are at least going to have a placeholder page that gives you information on how to sign up. If you're looking to get certified 2021, don't go elsewhere. Because for those who sign up in 2020, we're going to make that available to you for just $199. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous because the prices for training next year are going to be through the roof. They're going to be 700, 800, thousands. But if you want to sign up for that course for $199, you need to send an email right now. And I'm not talking about people getting certified 2020, 2021. If you know it's curtains, there's no way I can get certified 2020. You want to sign up for that training, okay? And you want to sign up by sending an email to support@praizion.com. As soon as we're ready to go, we'll let you know. And you need to sign up for that program for $199, all right? Because training, trust me, it's going to be through the roof. And some of you are going to be watching this months later. It's going to be a little bit too late by then, but we're going to try our best to keep costs as low as possible, okay? So I want you to know I've got you covered, all right? I've got you covered. If you're taking the exam 2021, this is probably going to be the most cost-effective training you'll see for miles. And you'll realize that today because I'm going to present to you today, I'm going to present to you the very first piece of this training. And I want to educate you on what the PMI is looking for when we talk about people, process, business, people, process, business. I want to give you some very interesting takes on the people piece, task one. We're going to talk about task one today. But before we jump into task one, let's go back to PMI's website. I just want to assure you, I know some of you are like, my goodness, I'm in trouble. No, you're not. You're not. I've got you covered. Got you covered. Just remember, projectmanagementmasterclass.com. That's where you're going to find training to help you 2021 to overcome this crazy beast. But talking about the registered education provider program, we are no longer going to be part of that program come end of 2020 because PMI is phasing it out and they're moving it over to the authorized training partner program, which we will not be part of for various reasons, which I'll share with you probably on another call. But let's go back to PMI's page for PMP. Those of you getting ready for it, I want you to go to the 2021 PMP exam content outline. I want to break down and unpack for you what exactly is coming down the pike. All right. So this is a totally different handbook from the handbook that's currently being used. And to cut to the chase, because I know many of you are familiar with the exam, the PMI is going to break down the exam into 3 domains: people, process, business. People, process, business. Now, what does this mean? To be quite honest with you, this doesn't mean much. For those people who have started familiarizing themselves with this, students who have been reading this, or students who have read the mothership, okay? Or students who are listening to this. Project management is not changing. No one is saying this is wrong. I know a lot of you are by accident thinking, oh, it's going to be based on a 7th edition in the beginnings of 2020. No, 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 no. 2021 rather. 2nd of January 2021, it's still going to be based on this. Well, let me take that back. It is going to be partially based on this, but not on a 7th edition. It is going to be based largely on what it has been, but the configuration of the questions, the question types, and the question concentrations, that is what is going to change. So if someone comes to you and says, yeah, you've read the Pmbok Guide 6th edition, but that doesn't mean anything, you're going to fail. Tell them, no, 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 no. I know the base of what the exam is going to be based on, because it's still going to be based largely on the 6th edition. I know PMI says, oh, it's based on a wider body of knowledge. Come on now, let's get real. Let's get real. If you don't know the processes in this thing, if you don't know the process names, and if you don't know a lot of the tools and techniques, you're going to probably flunk 3/4 of the exam. Let's just be honest. So the exam is changing. It's going to be 50% hybrid and agile and 50% predictive, but that is not to diminish what is in the Pmbok Guide 6th edition. So I want you to just calm down a notch, because if you've read the 6th edition, it's still relevant for January 2nd, okay? It's just that you need a thick layer of Agile to be spread across. And your thinking when it comes to Agile and the team, and when it comes to what does the project manager do in the world of Agile versus the world of predictive, that is what is very, very striking. Not saying people process business doesn't really mean much, because a lot of people taking the exam today in 2020, they know this stuff. They know people process business, but what they don't know, let's go back to the document. I really want you to get what I'm saying. This people process business breakdown, yeah, I mean, we could look at the current breakdown of the exam and argue, well, yeah, I mean, it's almost the same proportion. We got a whole bunch of people. It's always, what should the project manager do next? What should the project manager do? Stakeholder did this. Yeah, it's already people process business broken. Yeah, let's be honest, but what is different? I'm going to show you in a few seconds. What is different is not on that page. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming up, it's coming up, it's coming up, it's coming up. And to find it, I'm going to search for the key word. The key word is that percentage, 50%. Here we go. Oh, it's on that page. There it is. There it is. Let's go back to it. I want to show you this. Okay. Watch this. I'm going to highlight it. You with me? Let's highlight the most important point. Here it is. About, you see that? About half. That's the 50% piece. About half. See that? Of the examination will represent predictive project management. Now we're talking. Now we're talking about what the major change is. It's not the people process. You know, I see people running around, oh, people process business. No, it's not that. Talent Triangle's been around for a while. So we've already known that take that the PMI has, but this is the big thing. See, about half of the exam will represent predictive project management approaches, and the other half will represent agile or hybrid approaches. Boom, that's it, my friends. That is what is going to make this exam different. Do you follow? That's what's going to make it different. Okay, so let me just help you align your focus. It's not about the people process business. No, 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 no. It's about the coming of Agile. So what are we saying in essence? In essence, we're saying when you think about people, you got to think about predictive, you got to think about Agile, you got to think about hybrid. That's what we're saying. When you think about process, you got to think about predictive, agile, and hybrid. And when you think about the business, you got to think about predictive, agile, and hybrid. Do you get what I'm saying? So the question then becomes, okay, Phil, perhaps PMI was kind enough to break down people into the tasks that are going to be agile focused and the tasks that are going to be predictive or hybrid focused. You wish. Well, let's go on down to the domains. Going through these domains, my friends, and trust me, I've been going through these domains for over a year. Since middle of 2019, I've been going through this document. I've done a lot of mapping of this document, and I can tell you there is nothing that distinguishes largely these tasks from predictive or hybrid or agile. They could be anything. And that means the questions could be very ambiguous, except you understand the language that will point towards an agile question and the language that will point towards a predictive question. So let's get it straight. Let me just give you some very quick tips. If you see process names, if you see tools and techniques that are of a predictive nature, you know, yes, that is definitely a predictive question. But if you see terms such as sprints, backlogs, retrospectives, you see the word agile itself, and you see the ominous word that is taking over the world of the PMI by storm, value. That is a red light. They're talking hybrid, or of course, very much agile. So you're not going to have any clues other than you knowing deep down what makes agile agile and what makes predictive predictive and what makes it a hybrid. You got to know that. Let me show you really quick. Let's open up this book. I want to show you very quickly some of the hallmarks of the agile dogma. Let's go to page 49. All right. Implementing agile, delivering an agile environment. At a minimum, for an agile project, the team needs the vision, project vision or purpose, and a clear set of working agreements. An agile project charter, you see the terms. PMI has their special terms that they use in their document. You won't hear this in Scrum. You don't hear agile project. No. So Scrum, you know, you heard Sonia and I talking about Scrum. That's part of agile, but agile as presented from the lens of the PMI, they've got a different spin to some of the language, a different spin. So why are we doing this project? Who benefits and how? What does done mean? That is another key word. You hear the word done, the meaning of done, the interpretation of done, the definition of done. You know, we're talking about agile. How are we going to work together? Then it says a servant leader may facilitate the chartering process. Servant leader is code for Scrum Master or Agile leader, if you will. A team can coalesce by working together, and the project charter is a great way to start working. In addition, team members may want to collaborate to understand how they will work together. Let's go to page 50, where the punchline here, and they've got a lot of information, team values, working agreements, ground rules, group norms, all that stuff has to be put together. But it says, the servant leader together with the team may decide to address other behaviors. That again is another pointer towards what could be an agile or a hybrid question. When you see the term team or self-organizing team, oh, you know, yep, that's it, that's agile. You get what I'm saying? All right, now let's go to some common agile practices on page 50. First one, retrospectives. Very similar to lessons learned, but not entirely. The retrospectives have a softer touch and a no holds barred kind of touch in which people are free to speak their minds, and it's not as formal as documenting lessons learned. No. In fact, there's very little documentation out of Agile. So when people get together in a retrospective, it's not to paint each other bad or document who did anything wrong. In fact, it's for the team's organic learning. And that's why Roy, my buddy, he says, he's our trainer for Agile, and he says, Agile Vegas, baby. Whatever happens in Agile stays there. Whatever happens in the retrospective stays there. So it's not going to be painted all over documentation and such. Going over to page 52, backlog preparation, preparing the backlog. So sprint backlog, product backlog, but the PMI typically stays away from being very specific about terms that map directly to Scrum because it's some sort of, competition, I would say. So they're very quick to not use overtly Scrum terms. They're very quick not to show you the Scrum skeleton that Ken Schwaber and Jeff Sutherland have over the years projected. They're kind of careful not to show you any of that in the Agile Practice Guide. And of course, even the Scrum Guide, you don't see that in there, but in one of Ken's books, you see it presented in there. But the PMI, they are trying to create their own little niche in Agile, so there's more on that to come. Roy and I have some sessions where we're gonna cover that and talk about the move, the rise of discipline Agile. So that's coming. That's another thing that's coming, but that's for later. Page 52, backlog refinement, refining the product backlog. That's a big one. But again, you don't see them using the word product backlog that much. They may just refer to it as backlog, but we know in the world of Scrum, we know where that came from. That's the product backlog. Oh, that's the sprint backlog. All right, daily stand-ups. Again, they would not use the word daily Scrum because they're trying to make it all encompassing over the world of Agile. They're trying to make it very vanilla flavored. And I can tell you from the perspective of someone who has taken the Agile Certified Practitioner exam, yeah, the PMI, at least when I took it, the PMI hit the spot in making it as vanilla flavored as possible. I was quite surprised that there was not any overt mention of a lot of the methods that people read about, the crystals of this world, the scrums of this world, and so on, the, DSDM. There was not any specific mention, TDD, all that stuff you read. No. They kind of stayed away from it. They tried to focus more on the essence of Agile. I quite like that in the ACP exam, and I hope that doesn't change. But I expect them to bring elements of understanding vanilla flavored Agile into the new exam. All right, daily stand-ups. Again, they want to use the word daily Scrum. The sprint review on page 55, they refer to this as demonstration/reviews. And then they've got planning for iteration-based Agile again there. And on the next page, they talk about execution practices that help teams deliver value. These are kind of important. If you're one of our students and you're taking the 40-day course right now, you're going to come across a question on this, I promise you. So you got to know your terms: continuous integration, test at all levels, acceptance, test, driven development. Nancy, welcome to the party. Test-driven development, TDD, and behavior-driven development, and Spike. So Nancy, I'm sure a lot of this stuff I'm mentioning is like Greek. Yes, it sounds like Greek, but I want you to know I am believing you're going to kill the exam in 2020, right? I'm hoping you're not going to go to 2021. So, but this is all good knowledge. And I'll even say, Nancy, that the Agile stuff that you have, the videos you have to watch, Roy actually covers a lot of this stuff I'm talking about. Okay, so in the world of the new exam, my friends, you're going to have to know these things on page 49, 50, 51 forward that I read, because that is going to help you detect when it is agile and when might be predictive or when it's hybrid. You got to know that. There's actually a very good page here, a couple of good pages. And this will be very helpful to those who are already PMPs. If you're already a PMP, this will be helpful to you, because the PMI give you some visuals of the world of hybridization, okay? So let's take a look at page 27. Page 27, you can see agile development followed by a predictive rollout. And then you also see an image for a combined agile and predictive approach used simultaneously. And then if you go to page 28, still in the Agile Practice Guide, you can see a largely predictive approach with agile components. Some of the components I read to you, you can take some of those and use them in a predictive project, right? Or in the world of Agile, you could take pretty much what is an agile approach and inject it with a little bit of predictive. So you do need to be able to read between the questions to detect when that is happening, okay? All right, so let's go back to the content outline Here we go. So going back to the content outline on PMI's website, I just pointed out to you the big piece of this change. It's not in the people process business, my friends. It's not. It's in this right here. Okay, so for those of you just coming, we're taking a look at what's coming down the pike, in 2021 and how this is going to change the game significantly. And to be quite honest with you, I like being hybrid. I like being agile. I like being more hybrid than predictive. I have to be honest, because predictive has its limitations. Think about it for a second. If people in today's business age were just predictive, they wouldn't be able to bounce back in this crazy pandemic world, right? So being agile is actually a good thing. Being hybridized is a good thing. So about half of the examination will represent predictive project management approaches, and the other half will represent agile or hybrid approaches. Predictive, agile, and hybrid approaches will be found throughout the 3 domain areas listed above and are not isolated to any particular domain or task. You see what makes it so hard? No one is saying this task is just predictive. No, it could be predictive. It could be agile. And I know this firsthand because my question writers and I, we've already developed an exam based on this new outline. And one of the things we did was to put in questions that are predictive and questions that are agile, and some questions that are just in the middle of the road. So you can expect that. All right, some other horrors that I expected on this exam, and I just have to be honest, I have to give you the information that I've been able to glean. But some of the other information I've been able to glean is that the exam over time, I'm not sure whether it's going to be smack dab on the 2nd of January, then you'll face these. But what I've heard is that some additional flavorings are coming. Let me just show you this very quickly on the whiteboard. What I've heard from people and through the grapevine and from the horse's mouth themselves. Yes. If you want to listen to the podcast that they put out, and you've probably listened to the podcast that PMI put out last year and early this year, well, you realize that MCQ does not mean 4 options, 1 key. It doesn't mean that there's just 1 key. You could have, coming down the pike, 4 options, select all that apply, coming to a cinema near you. Can you imagine the horrors of that? So you got A, B, C, D. Gone are the days when it will just be, oh, it's just A. No. In 2021, from what we've heard in the podcast, and to be quite honest with you, I take this with a pinch of salt because I know the PMI can be quite laggards in, they put out something and they don't do it for the next 100 years. But since they've put it out, it's fair game. And I thought I should let you know, if they've said we could have select all that apply, you got to be thinking about that. So it's not just going to be A, it could be A and C on some questions. That was mentioned. So I wouldn't put it past them to bring up these surprises eventually. I'm just letting you know what I've heard, all right? What I've heard, all right. Something else I've heard about these multiple choice questions is you're going to have some sort of simulations in audio format and in video format. Think about that. It's different. Unknown, right? Risks, unknowns. There's some unknowns here. There might be some people that are not really compatible with watching videos. I don't know whether it will trigger something. I don't know. But that's what's coming down the pike. I'm just thinking open-mindedly for you here. Next thing that I heard that's coming down the pike is the drag and drop. So you've got a statement here and they ask you to match it with, other pieces of information. And they ask you to match them and you have to drag and drop and do things like that. I don't know, whatever. But you kind of get the idea. What I'm trying to show you is that this game is changing. And I'm hoping that those of you taking it or planning to take it before it changes, actually go ahead and do that. Some of you are sitting on the fence and saying, oh, I don't know what to do. 2020. Look, if you're hearing the sound of my voice in 2020, don't be ridiculous. Go do it. What's it going to cost you? At least you know you tried, right? You know you tried. For those of you that are wondering, well, I'm doing it in 2020 and I have very little hope. You heard what Sonia told you earlier. Sonia went through the process. She followed our process, okay? So either way, you are covered. If you're with us right now, you're covered. For those of you who are students right now, I'll just make this very, very clear, very clear. Those of you watching that are on the 40-day program, we are not looking to charge you a dime more to be in our class if for one reason or the other, family reasons, complexities of life, if you're not able to get certified in 2020, we got you covered. We're not taking a dime, a single dime more from any of our students that is a current student. We will be with them all the way. Those of you on the 40-day program alone, the 40-day program, we will be with you all the way. All right. So you had to have been on the PM Succeed and sign up for the 40 days to PMP, but you won't have to pay a dime more. So if you're not able, for some freak reason, you're not able to take the exam, maybe test centers are full, don't worry, 2021 will support you. We already have the course fully developed, it's all there. And I'm going to be presenting a little bit of it to our students today. But I just wanted you to know that. And for those of you that are like, Phil, yeah, I want to take it 2021, but I definitely can't afford hundreds and hundreds of dollars. For those of you that sign up for our course coming up, we got a course that is happening on projectmanagementmasterclass.com. It's going to be available later on this month. But if you want to sign up for that program, just send an email. But for those who sign up before we move into 2021, you're going to get it for such a ridiculous steal for this new curriculum. All right. So I would recommend send an email to support@praizion.com. But for our current students, don't freak out. We've got you covered. All right. So with that said, let's take a look at this PMI content outline, and let's go to the domain tasks and enablers section. You can see here it says, in this document, you will find updated structure for the PMP examination content outline based on feedback from customers and stakeholders. We have worked on simplifying the format so the PMP exam content outline is easier to understand. All right, so what they've done, they've given you a domain such as people, process, business, and then they've given you tasks, the underlying responsibilities of the project manager within each domain area, and they've given you enablers. These enablers are tiny little bullets. They're illustrative examples of the work associated with the task. Please note that enablers are not meant to be an exhaustive list, but rather offer a few examples to help demonstrate what the task encompasses. Moving down, it says, following is an example. The task statement, manage conflict. And that is actually the very first one we will be taking a look at today. So when you take a look at manage conflict, you've got these three enablers. You've got interpret the source and stage of the conflict. You've got analyze the context for the conflict. And then evaluate, recommend, reconcile the appropriate conflict resolution solution. So the overall task statement, manage conflict, the domain, people, the enablers, those little bullets. So the question is, do you know what these enablers mean? Okay. Here is our friend Dev in the chat. Dev, how are you doing? I did not see your chats previously. Dev said, PMI already have ACP certification. And instead of adding another type of project management, they merge it with predictive project management with 6th edition. Is that reasonable, realistic? Dev, I kind of totally get what you're saying, and I really understand. The world is changing, to be quite honest. Things are becoming a lot more agile driven. I want to show you something, Dev. I don't know if you saw my post, because I know you follow me on LinkedIn, but I don't know if you saw my post yesterday about the world of Agile. Let me see if I can pull that up for you. There was a study that our friends, my friends at Dice, and I say my friends because once upon a time they found me my dream job, to be quite honest. But let's take a look at this very quickly, Dev. I want you to pay close attention to what this survey says. Okay, Dev, take a look, open mind, right? Minds are like parachutes. They function best when they're open, don't they? All right, let's take a look. So dice.com, one of my favorite sites for finding jobs. And like I said, they found my dream job in a gaming company, making video games once upon a time. So project management, it's Scrum or nothing, says new study. Why are they saying that? Let's take a look at this. I want you to take a close look. Of those surveyed, take a look. Let's see if we can make it as big as possible. There we go. All right, so you can see the project management methods developers use. Take a look, top of the line right there. Scrum. That's top of the line. Followed by an agile waterfall hybrid. Uh-oh. Where's predictive? Well, predictive is after Kanban. Oh my goodness. What is happening? You see why the PMI are moving in the direction that they are? They know for a fact that things are changing. Waterfall is getting lower and lower and lower. I mean, take a look at the difference between FDD and waterfall. It's very, very minuscule there. You would have thought you would see waterfall almost on par with Scrum. But when we talk about the world of development, the world of developers, you can see that Scrum takes the cake. But not just that, Let's take a closer look at what this really means. If you take a look at those who say Agile/waterfall hybrid, in all honesty, those folks are using some Scrum as well. Truly. When you talk about those who are using Scrum, another survey indicated that at least 70% of those who say they are Agile, 70% of those who say they're using Agile use Scrum. 70% of those who say we're Agile. So even right there in that Agile waterfall hybrid that we're looking at, Dev, there are some people there who are going to be using Scrum. So it becomes important for PMI to move with the times. And honestly, I have absolutely nothing against what they're doing, moving with the times. My concern is really more about how they are spreading what is a standard for project management. That's a different concern. So my concern with the PMI 7th edition, that's a whole different concern. But as far as being more agile aware, hybridize, honestly, let me be honest, I think predictive has very little hope. Seriously, it has very little hope going forward. But when I say it has very little hope, who cares? Who cares what you call it? What I'm keen on is project managers being able to add value to the max. And if they do not have Agile in their toolkit, they're stunted, they're stumped, they're dwarfed. They cannot do what a more superior project manager that has Agile smarts and predictive smarts can do. You take a look at it, everything is changing, right? Computers are running the world, AI is coming in like never before. Even the exam, even the PMP exam uses AI to detect cheating and things like that. And if you haven't watched my video on that, go watch it. But things are changing. And since technology is becoming a lot more dominant than ever, I mean, so dominant, you know how much we rely on these devices? You know how much you rely on a phone or an iPad or a tablet to control a whole machine shop. It's crazy. So everything is changing, and it is important to be more agile aware, agile conscious. And, let's get it straight. Agile is not just about IT. That's where people get it wrong. Trust me. I've studied engineering. I know the importance of methods and practices and tools and very, very heavy processes. But you do need to be agile these days. And while I'm not saying construction is going to go in, no, it cannot be entirely agile. There will always be predictive components because we know what we're doing. I mean, it's here. PMI is not arguing that fact. So someone says, oh, but I'm in construction, I'm kind of offended about that. There's nothing to be offended about. PMI isn't saying go full agile on every single project. This is on page 14 of the Agile Practice Guide, the Stacy complexity model. What is a summary of this? Because I think it's good we talk about this and get out of the way. What is a summary about this? Here's the summary. You're either very certain in your requirements or far from certainty. And your requirements are either very defined or they're loosey-goosey. So the more specificity you have in your project, you are going to be here in the predictive zone. The further away from certainty and requirements definition you are, the more you need to be in the change-driven, which we call agile. Change-driven. This is change-driven, my friends. See that? Change-driven. So you need to be agile if your requirements are far from certainty. Take a look at the COVID-19 vaccine. It's a prime example of how they've had to be agile. This has never been done before. This is bordering on chaos. This is bordering on anarchy. Think about it. No one even knew about the thing in 2019, 2020, boom. All of a sudden, everyone's saying COVID-19, coronavirus. Those were terms you never heard. No one ever imagined that you would have to be seen going around like this. Huh? Hello, good to meet you. No one ever thought of that before this COVID stuff. So people have had to be very agile. And that's why in addressing dev's concern, agile is not just for IT. It is for everyone. Everyone has to be thinking more agilely, and we do it every day. I mean, think about it. You're driving to work on the freeway, and all of a sudden, on comes a radio report. Mind you, you planned that you were going to take the 202 to work, and then the radio report comes on, you realize, oh my goodness, they're blocked at McClintock or wherever it is, and you're like, okay, I got to go in road. What do you think that is? That is being agile. Why don't you just stay and say, no, I'm going to stay on the 202, go all the way. You're going to be late. The same way people get to the end of the project and there's no value whatsoever. So it becomes very important to be in your thinking agile. And that is why I wholeheartedly subscribe to what they are trying to do in this sense, in this vein. My argument is definitely not to be hybrid. Hybrid is good, right? Being agile is good. Where the problem comes is when people are not teaching project management in general properly. And that is more of my 7th edition concern. That's a different thing. But by all means, anyone who needs to be predictive should be predictive. All right? Very good. There's one more page in the Agile Practice Guide that you might find interesting here, still in that vein, talking about the Stacy complexity model. So check out page 14, but don't forget page 19. Okay, page 19 shows something similar to what I drew out just now, and this is the degree of change on projects. Okay, very good. All right. Let's see if our friends have any questions about anything. I've talked for quite a while, almost over an hour. So let's see if there are any questions from our friends. Very good. Okay. Thank you, Dev. I kind of felt you would understand that. Dev says, because the industry is big, they're all using, yep, that's true. That's true. I totally agree with you, Dev. It's good food for thought. But at the end of the day, you don't have to be entirely agile. Like I said, you get just a tiny little bit of agile infused. You know, let me give you one good thing you can take away from the world of agile, if nothing else. One, user stories. User stories. I was working with someone in one of these government agencies, and we're working on a project, and the project was a problem. because they were trying to work the project predictively. It didn't work. Not until we took the user story concept as a I would like, so that. We took the concept and we defined the requirements using user stories, not the traditional requirements traceability matrix or requirements documentation. No, 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 that didn't work. But the moment we got into the introspective thought about as a, okay, what's my role here? Okay, as a, whatever I am, I want or I would like, whatever it is, so that the moment we forced the stakeholders to think differently, not just throwing out, oh, I want this, I want this. No, 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 no. What role are you going to be in for you to want that? And what do you want to do? The moment we made it that, boom, the light bulbs came on, that project was a home run. And that was an entity that was used to doing things in a very, siloed, tunnel vision type of way. But they had to think agilely. Another example, I don't know if you've read of this example, it's called the virtual case file project. This project was a disaster, hundreds of millions of dollars, and it was from my friends at the FBI who have trained, and I gave them some grief for it as we were joking around in the class. But the story is not until they used agile practices did that virtual case file project actually succeed. I'm going to show you in the link. I'll drop a link there if you are keen on reading it. Go read up the virtual case file project. I'm sure you'll find it rather interesting. Dev, go check out the virtual case file project right there. Okay. Very good. Okay. So this has been rather a free-form session more than anything else. And I really wanted it to be a forum for you to ask questions. I haven't gotten much questions, but I'm very grateful for Sonia contributing and for Dev asking the question. And if you have any more questions, don't hesitate. But let's talk about the outline for the exam. All right, so you can see here, we have people, 42%. The tasks: manage conflict, lead a team, support team performance, empower team members and stakeholders, ensure team members are adequately trained, build a team, address and remove impediments, obstacles, and blockers. The word impediment is another clue that, okay, this is probably going towards an agile lens. Number 8, negotiate project agreements. Number 9, collaborate with stakeholders. Number 10, build shared understanding. Number 11, engage and support virtual teams. Number 12, define team ground rules. Number 13, mentor relevant stakeholders. And 14, promote team performance through application of EI. Now, I must tell you that training this was fun. As I told you in the beginning, I have already trained all of these tasks, every single one of them. And that was just the people, right? That's people. If we go down to the process, you see it's the similar format. See that? Execute project with the urgency required to deliver business value, manage communications, that's Pmbok language, assess and manage risks, engage stakeholders, plan and manage budget and resources, plan and manage schedule, plan and manage quality of products or deliverables, plan and manage scope, integrate project planning activities, manage project changes, plan and manage procurement. Sounds familiar? It's like a Jekyll and Hyde thing going on. The PMI doesn't want to call it conduct procurement, so they say plan and manage procurement. You see how they've changed some of the language from Pmbok language? Manage project artifacts. You see, if you take a look at manage project artifacts, you see that this is different from the language we would use, such as manage project knowledge or close project or phase. It's different. Determine appropriate project methodology, methods, and practices, establish project governance structure, manage project issues, ensure knowledge transfer for project continuity, plan and manage project/phase closure or transitions. And then it goes into the business. This is the shortest of all, and it's only 8% of the exam. Plan and manage project compliance. There actually is a question about compliance right there in their mock exam. There's a question about this in the PMI mock. That is just to show you the relevance of these tasks. They do need to be read and understood. Task 2, evaluate and deliver project benefits and value. Task 3, evaluate and address external business environment changes for impact on scope. Task 4, support organizational change. So with all of that said, my friends, there is quite a lot of information. There's so much information here, but let's start off by putting you into one of our classes. All right. So now you're in my class and I'm going to teach you task 1, all about conflict. But before I teach you about task 1, it is very important that you have some background about the world of the PMI and what is the end game in all of this? What is the end game? So the end game in PMI's lens of project management is this. You have a business case, which is your economic feasibility study of sorts. Your business case is going to be transformed through the process of develop project charter into a project charter. But that is not the only thing that goes into developing a project charter. So imagine you are a vendor, you're a seller, you're working for someone else. It is important for you to understand what exactly do they want. At the same time, you could also think about a project internal to a firm where you may not have an external client. If you do have an external client, then you need to be thinking about agreements as being an input to developing the project charter. And more so, you also need to be thinking about a very important ingredient, which will have even more prominence as the days go by, and it's known as the benefits management plan. The benefits management plan is talked about under business documents, but we could implicitly say there is some influence as you're developing that charter. In fact, if you go to page 30 of the Pmbok guide and you take a look at that image in there, why don't we go there real quick? Go to page 30 and you take a look at figure 1-8. You can see the needs assessment precedes the business case. And then the benefits management plan could be done in tandem, but ultimately the business case is what will feed into the project charter. You see that? So your benefits management plan must not be forgotten. And the reason is this. When you get your project charter as an output, we put this into what I would call the main line. Let's just call it, we put it into the project main line. Think of it like a conveyor belt of sorts where the project activities and the technical work and everything is being done. We'll call it the main line. But what do you want out of the main line? Out of the main line, what you want is called a final product, service, or result transition. So I'm just going to say final deliverable transition. That's what you want. So you want all of these benefits to be captured, the essence of the project to be captured. You put it into a project charter. Along the way, you create a project management plan. You put all this stuff into the pipeline. The project is being worked. You get your final deliverable transition, but that's not the end. That's not the end. That's not the end. This is where the new exam is putting a spin on it. The end game of this entire project is summed up in this word. After the final transition, you now have that deliverable. What is a deliverable? For example, it's a TV. It's a TV, and you want to be able to watch TV on it. But what happens if you never turn on the switch? What happens if Yeah, the TV, it has been manufactured, it has been created, that was the project, it has been delivered. Think about it. If you never turn on that TV, if you never hit that on button, you will never get the value of buying that TV. And that's how a lot of projects are. The end goal, what they wanted to install something, but nobody really thought about what the benefits are. In other words, the value that it's going to bring and how the benefits are going to be realized. And this is one of the things that Agile espouses a lot more preeminently than the predictive approach. When it comes to Agile, we talk about the minimum viable product. We're talking about delivering incrementally so that we can learn from the client along the way. Are we delivering value? Has this really done it for you? What can we take away from what we've done to know more about what you really want and to add more value, incremental value? You get what I'm saying? Let's go to our Agile practice guide really quick. I want to show you something there. Page 18, real quick. We go to page 18 and you take a look at table 3-1. You take a look at predictive. What is a goal? Manage cost. You take a look at iterative. What is the goal? Correctness of the solution. You take a look at incremental. What is the goal? Speed. But if you take a look at Agile, this is where the importance comes in. Customer value via frequent deliveries and feedback. You see that? So you want to give value, but you want that feedback. And that feedback is what you're going to put back into the process, and it's going to help you to further refine that backlog and get as much value as possible for the minimum amount of work. Remember, you want to maximize the amount of work not done. That is one of the hallmarks of Agile. And that has to be our mantra: value, value, value. And that's why when you read the manifesto, it talks about people and interactions over those processes and tools. We're thinking about our collaboration over negotiation. There are many, many ideas, new ideas that many of you who have not dabbled into Agile will need to start thinking about. So it's a different ball game, right? In the world of Agile, and for this new exam, you need to be thinking value, value. How do I actually get the value? By turning the switch on. Who's going to turn the switch on? How are we going to realize the benefits? You get what I mean? Good. All right. So moving back to review of this very first task. Before we get into the meat of manage conflict, I want to give you some insights to what you should first of all be thinking about, even before looking at the PMI's PMP exam content outline. I have to be honest with you. No one's going to be dishonest with you and tell you the outline did not start from the beginning of the story. I'll just tell you plumb and plain. If you have any friend taking the exam next year, tell them, hey, before you get all excited about the outline, you got to know the backstory. There's a backstory, and it's not told in the outline. And it's very disturbing to me because while it looks like, oh yeah, this is an exam for people who are like senior project managers, or they've been managing projects for 3 years plus 5 years and all that, if they do not understand this overarching framework, it is hard to hang things on nothing. So you cannot just come to me and say, okay, let's talk about conflict. Conflict from what perspective? Who is involved? What has transpired? And that's why I started off by talking about the value, the value, the value. And when you understand the end game of value, the next question is, okay, what processes are in place to deliver value? Now, watch this very carefully, my friends. When you're taking this new exam, you need a base. You know, like in the world of Scrum, we have a base, right? You want to use that skeleton of Scrum to hang all of the Agile pieces on. You get what I'm saying? Don't hang your understanding of Agile on nothing. And that's why when people come along and say, oh, we're having Agile training, and I'm like, okay, where did you start? Start from the principles, good. You start from the manifesto, good. But then you need to hang those on something. You can't just hang them in thin air. I've shown you, based on Deb's question, 37% of those respondents, they said they use Scrum before anything else. Kanban, hybrid, fully plan driven, Scrum. So don't dismiss Scrum. It is going to be very helpful for those of you that don't understand. What on earth? Okay, Agile. I hear Agile, Agile. Okay, I've read the manifesto. These sound okay, but I don't have a framework to hang my understanding on. And that is why, really rapidly, we're going to take a look at a little bit of one of my favorite topics. Scrum. Why don't we take a look at just a little bit, just a tiny little injection of Scrum, just a tiny little injection. I want to show you really quickly the essence of this Scrum ideologies that you've been hearing. All right, you've been hearing a lot about Scrum. What exactly is it? Okay, so I told you about this agency that I worked with, and people were like, okay, I don't know what we're doing. What are we doing? And I talked about user stories and a backlog. Well, there's a backstory to the backlog. There's a backstory to the backlog, and that is what I'm going to be showing you, the backstory to the backlog. So what is a backstory? Everyone needs something on a project or in business, but the problem is a lot of people don't know what they want. A lot of people are clueless in knowing what they want, and for that reason, we start off the discussion with the product backlog. Okay, I know we're going towards conflict, but I need to show you this first. All right, the product backlog is a log. Just think about it, a log of user-centered requirements. Think of it like that. It's a log of user-centered requirements, what exactly the end users want. And it's written in the format as a, whatever you are, I would like, whatever it is, so that whatever you want. Okay, let's go a step further. As a project manager or a PMP exam, let's use that, PMP exam student. As a PMP exam student, I would like a 20-hour audio set, maybe MP3, just like the one I told you about, so that I can study everywhere to maximize time. Okay, so as a PMP exam student, I would like a 20-hour MP3 audio set so that I can study everywhere to maximize time. So that is a rather colorful illustration. And of course, for those of you studying for the exam, I got to let you know about the audio digest. If you need 20 hours of audio, you need to go on down to the Praizion.com site and look around. You'll find it there. But think about that. As a student, you want certain functionalities or you want certain products, deliverables, but you got to spell out why you want them. And that is the beginnings of Scrum. As a, I would like, so that. So to go a step further in this journey, my friend, this backlog has so many of these. And ultimately, this work is going to get done, all right? You're going to decide at some point to work on maybe just 2 of these, right? In a sprint. And for that reason, we have a smaller backlog, which is a subset of the the product backlog called the sprint backlog. So we're going to take the sprint backlog and we're going to put it into the sprint. So the sprint consists of getting the work done. The sprint could be anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks. Some people say, no, it's 4 to 6. Some people say, no, it's 2 to 6. Go take a look at the November 2020 Scrum Guide. And let's see what it says. I'm going to show you the Scrum Guide because I don't think this will be complete without showing you where to get the Scrum Guide, because I'm telling you, go study Scrum, go know Scrum, but I haven't shown you the Scrum Guide. I got to show it to you, all right? So if you go to scrumguides.org, right, you'll be able to see the Scrum Guide. And if you go through the information, let's go straight to sprint, the sprint. All right. Sprints are the heartbeat of Scrum, where ideas are turned into value. They are fixed length events of 1 month or less. 1 to 4 weeks. That's what the new Scrum Guide says. So you kind of get where I'm going with this, all right? I'm mapping back to the Scrum Guide so I can better understand, but I know teams have different durations for Scrum. All right, they have different durations. So let's go in there and let's correct that to 1 to 4 weeks, just to be compliant with what Ken and Jeff have done. Those are our friends, all right? 1 to 4 weeks. But I know you can modify it as you wish. But if you read the disclaimer at the beginning, there's a reason why they are recommending this length, all right? Based on contributions and other things. All right, so we have the sprint. And within 1 to 4 weeks, this work is getting done. The team is working. So let's talk a little bit about the product backlog. The product backlog gets put together by using a conduit. We've got the business. The business use an intermediary known as the product owner. The product owner. It's a person. That's why I've drawn a face. Product owner. All right. So the product owner is intermediary, but the product owner works along with the team. All right. So we have a team that is also involved in how stuff eventually gets here and how stuff gets in there as well. We also have a Scrum Master. These, of course, are all entities, they're people. The Scrum Master is a servant leader where the team is concerned. The team is responsible for getting the work done, and it's a self-organizing group. But ultimately, there's a very important feature of Scrum, and that is the daily stand-up. Okay? The daily stand-up happens every 24 hours. And this is where the team is going to answer the questions that everyone knows. And it boils down to this. Yesterday, what did you do to contribute towards the sprint goal? Today, what are you going to do to work towards the sprint goal? And which impediments are in your way? That's pretty much what it boils down to. People often say the 3 questions. Well, over the years, those have changed. We've heard different questions being posed in different ways, but the most important thing is asking, what have you done to contribute towards that sprint goal? Okay. And when these questions are answered, the team has clarity. There are going to be discussions outside of the meeting to remove impediments, mark that word, impediments. And when those impediments have been removed, people can do what they need to do. And this happens every 24 hours, it's a 24-hour cycle. Okay? That goes on for the duration of the sprint. As you are approaching the end of the sprint, you need to think about some refinement. Let's just call it some backlog refinement. That needs to happen before you get to the end of the sprint, because once you get to the end of the sprint, The next sprint begins immediately. So there's some backlog refinement going on. But all of this has to be done before getting to the end of the sprint, where you will have the potentially shippable increment, which of course will capture the essence of the minimum viable product as well. You get that potentially shippable increment that gives you insight and intel. But before you close down, you also want to have a sprint review where you demo the product. And when all is said and done, you also want to have a retrospective, which is more like a lessons learned. Only that you got to remember the Agile Vegas clause. So what is a summary of all of this? This is a self-organizing team. They are responsible for a lot that goes on. There is no draconian rule. There should not be draconian rule. There should be the assumption that these are adults, they're mature, they know what they're meant to do. It's a team that has broad skills, but they also have deep skills in certain specializations. And this helps them be able to move and morph and help each other as the project proceeds. We call this T-shaped skills. So the team has T-shaped skills. And the whole idea behind this is at the end of the sprint, you continue again. At the end of the sprint, you continue again. You do the next one and the next one. You're adding more functionality. You're delivering incrementally. It does not always have to go to production just because we have a PSI. No, we could say, all right, we're not going to put this into production yet. But the idea is you should have a PSI, potentially shippable increment. Okay, so now you understand the philosophies of Scrum, right? Scrum 101, right? You understand all that I've shown you. Now that you understand that, let's go back to the world of predictive. I got to show you a few things in predictive. Now you see, you'll probably observe how easy it is to explain Scrum. Now going into the world of predictive, you're going to see how, I don't know, it sucks energy out of you, because you got to think about so many parameters and process names and ITTOs and things like that. And hopefully PMI is moving a little bit away from that, but it's still going to be on the next exam. Okay, so let's talk about the essence of this approach. You ready? Okay, let's do it. So I got to share with you the essence of the PMI's 5 process groups at the top, 10 knowledge areas at the left. This is a page in the Pmbok Guide 6th edition known as page 25. It shows in integration, we're integrating the work, we have these processes. The main purpose is to move the project along cohesively. In scope, we have these processes. The main idea is to scope out the work and manage it. In schedule management, we have these processes. The overarching idea is to develop a schedule and help the team deliver to the schedule. Now you see that all this is different from the world of Scrum that I just showed you. It's a different method. It's predictive. In the world of cost, we manage cost, we have our budget, we make sure we meet those budget targets. In quality, we define quality requirements. In resource management, we manage resources. In communications, we communicate. In risk, we manage uncertainty. In procurement, we manage contracts and procurements. And in stakeholder management, we manage the interactions between us, our team, and stakeholders. We manage the engagement. Now, with all of that said, my friends, this is a beast. And that is why I have whittled this down to what I call the Pmbok mainline. Out of all of these 49 processes, there's a line of important fit that will help you understand the next task we're going into. Okay? We're going into conflict, but I want to show you where conflict comes from, and I want to use the main line to do that. So in integration, we develop the charter, and the project charter becomes an input to identification of stakeholders. Why? Well, because the project charter contains key stakeholders in a list. So we have a key stakeholder list, and that becomes an input to identify stakeholders, and we can elaborate on that list by making it into a register. We do all sorts of analyses, and we understand our stakeholders better. So we get a stakeholder register, but the project charter also goes to the development of a robust project management plan. This is talked about on page 89 of the Pmbok guide, where you see all the components of the project management plan, all 19 of them. Now, the project management plan feeds many processes, so many processes, and that's the big old main line in blue that you're seeing there. The project management plan feeds all processes except two. It becomes an input to direct and manage project work where the project work is being done. And from the project work being done, we get a very important output known as work performance data. This work performance data is also accompanied with deliverables, and it becomes an input to a process that we'll see in a few seconds. But before we talk about that process, the project management plan also goes to monitor and control project work. And like I said, it goes to all processes except two. So all non-integration processes will also have the project management plan as an input. The project management plan also becomes an input to this process in question. This one right here is known as control quality. And in control quality, this is where that deliverable is going to be checked. Now, when you think about it, where could conflicts come from? It could come from here. In the development of the charter, people don't agree about the project. It could come from here. People don't agree that this is a hybrid project. They think it should be only agile. It could come from here. People don't agree about the deliverable. They think it's no good. Conflict could come from anywhere along the main line. You see what I'm saying? And for that reason, you do need to understand the main line so you know where conflict could come from. So as teams are working in crafting the project and working on the project and reporting on the project, there could be a lot of conflict. You get what I'm saying? All right. Moving ahead. After this process, we have an input into monitor and control project work. Work performance information goes in there. Verify deliverables, which means a stamp of approval of the deliverable, goes to validate scope, where the customer will inspect it. We have change requests coming out of various processes and going to perform integrated change control. And this is where those processes that give us change requests give the change request to perform integrated change control, and an approving authority or change control board decides upon the fate of those change requests. But we also have work performance reports going into that same process to help us make decisions about whether the change request should be approved or not. We have a big green main line, which is supplying work performance data from direct and managed project work to all non-integration monitoring and controlling processes. We also can see how validate scope gives accepted deliverables to close project or phase, and how work performance information gets pumped into monitor and control project work. I told you that this was going to be significantly harder than the world of Scrum. But it does need to be understood, right? At a minimum, you need to understand this line of best fit, right? Very good, Louis. Louis says, is the main line still relevant for the new exam? Absolutely. And that's one of the things I mentioned, Louis, that the new exam is not going to be based on the 7th edition. It is still based on the 6th edition. So all that I'm showing you here is still relevant. The new exam will not be based on a 7th edition at this point. It usually takes many months to ramp up and to have, first of all, the new edition be published. And after the new edition is published, for the exam to change takes significant effort. So at least for the next 6 months, I can conveniently say people in 2021, they're going to be taking an exam that is still based on the 6th edition. As far as the garbage, the ITTO garbage truck, yeah, unfortunately, we're still going to have to jump in the garbage truck, pick out all those ITTOs. They're still there. They're going to be there in a more diminished fashion because half of the exam is going to be hybrid and agile, but we still got to get in the ITTO dump truck and fish out some ITTOs every now and again. But the 7th edition is not coming out until, who knows? Don't let me put labels, because the times that I've come out and said, PMI said, yeah, PMI then changes their mind. So I'm not going to say anything about that. But the exam will be changing December 2nd. No, I'm sorry, January 2nd. Not December. I don't want to freak anyone out. January 2nd, the current exam will be ending December 31st. So there's a blackout period on the 1st of January, and pedal to metal, new exam all the way. Okay, very good question. Thank you for asking it. All right, so that's the main line, my friends. The main line is very important. And now that we've talked about the main line, and you know that conflict could come from a variety of places. Conflict could come from the people on the conveyor belt here. They're not happy about something, or maybe there's some internal team scuffles, or maybe we have the storming stage of project team development where people are at loggerheads. Conflict could come from anywhere. So you kind of get the picture. Okay, that's done. So moving on. Now you know where conflict could come from. Let's go back real quick to talk about how conflict is resolved in this world of not only predictive, but also Scrum. So taking a look at this, my friends, you kind of get the idea. There could be conflict right here in the development of this. There could be conflict in when we are assigning story points. There could be. But if the Scrum Master knows what they're doing, they're going to circumvent as much as possible and create that environment. And the team also needs to have an understanding of conflict resolution. And that's why you often hear people saying, yes, the Scrum Master should be a servant leader. Yes, we could have conflict. We could have conflict anywhere, even in the daily Scrum. Even though people talk one at a time, we could still have conflict there. We could have conflict in the retrospective. We could have conflict in the sprint review. We could have conflict all over, right? So when we talk about managing conflict on projects, it is rather important that we don't just think about only predictive has the problems, or only Scrum has the problems, or only Agile has the problems. That would be wrong, okay? That would be wrong. So let's jump into talk about managing conflict. And I want to give you two broad takes on this. I want to give you the take in the world of predictive. I want to give you the take in the world of Agile. And I want to roll them up into one and give you some insights about that. So let's go back to a PowerPoint. And let's talk about this task a little bit more. Okay, so manage conflict. You got to first of all interpret the source and stage of the conflict, my friends. So let's think about it. This new world order of the PMI, where they're talking about hybrid and agile, right? And of course, predictive. There are many cases in the world of agile where you do not have a project manager. But let's talk about the difference between the project manager and the Scrum Master. Let's talk about that for a second. And this is going to help people make the switch, right? Scrum Master versus project manager. Let's think about that for a second. The Scrum Master is a role in the Scrum framework, as I've shown you, right? And we typically have someone who plays the same role in the world of Kanban, which is another agile approach. And the purpose for this person is less about managing the project. It's less about rank and file and making people do stuff. No, it's not about that. It's very little about project management. It's more about working with the team to improve their psychological well-being. So about improving the team's social structure and making sure they have the best day possible. Just making sure people have a good day. That's what the Scrum Master is meant to be doing. That's what we want the Scrum Master to be focusing on people, not focusing on what project managers do, which is reports and rank and file and methods and order and team leading through other methods, powers of the project manager and stuff like that in the Pmbok guide. No. It's not about that. But when we talk about project managers, they tend to be focused more on the project, and that's what they should be focusing on. They shouldn't have to be focusing on driving people daily. So Agile, when you think about it, it helps project managers get back to what they should be doing, and that's managing projects, right? Project managers should focus on budgets, report outs, stakeholder management as well, customer management, and things you do from a project management perspective. So contrary to what people think, oh, Agile is going to make project managers go away. No, it's not. No, it's not. But let's talk about how conflict works in a Scrum team or an Agile team. All right, let's talk about an Agile team first of all. So in general, it's usually more of a Scrum Master's responsibility than a project manager's responsibility. And the reason is the project manager, in many instances, is not as people focused as he or she needs to be. Let's just be honest. They're usually not. They should be, but they're usually not. But the Scrum Master, right from the get-go, right from the heart of Scrum, when this is taught in the Scrum Alliance, they help you to see that this means you should be people-focused. So the Scrum Master is a people-focused person. They're team-focused. So part of their job will be to get in front of that conflict to help management, to de-escalate it. You get it? To reduce conflict wherever possible. You see that? To reduce conflict when they need to. But this might shock you. How about to encourage conflict? Because we know the system has put in place processes and procedures to have healthy conflict. So sometimes healthy conflict is useful, diversity of ideas. We want to encourage that. We want to encourage the ability for people to talk and disagree. It's very important. It's very useful, but it also is important for the project manager in an agile setting, or let's just say the Scrum Master, to bring those disagreements to a healthy result. That's what we're looking for. And that's part of what the Scrum Master or the Agile PM should be focusing on. So it's really not different how you manage conflict in Agile space as in any other space like predictive. It's the same social skills. It's the same soft skills you need. The different stages of conflict, all the way from two people just talking about having a minor disagreement, all the way to World War III. So those are some of the stages of conflict. And basically what you want to do is, the more conflict escalates, bring different techniques into play. All right, so what the PMI tell you here, 3 things, let's take a look at them. 1, you got to interpret the source of the conflict and the stage of the conflict. You got to analyze the context for the conflict, and you got to evaluate, recommend, reconcile the appropriate conflict resolution solution. You realize in the Pmbok guide, we talk about the 5 stages of team development. I know some of you already know that. Let's talk about the 5 stages really quickly. Put them up for you, those of you that are not too familiar with it. So we have the forming stage, forming, storming, norming, performing. Let me do that again. Norming, performing. That's what I meant to type. Performing. And the adjourning stage, also known as the morning stage. Okay. So those are the 5 stages of team development. In the storming stage, this is where a lot of the conflicts occur, all right? A lot of disagreements and stuff. So a Scrum Master will spend a lot of time, especially in the early days of forming a team. They're going to spend a lot of time trying to build up trust. And there are all kinds of techniques. And one of the things you can do to help build trust faster in a team is to help the team, to encourage the team to show that they're vulnerable. Suppose a team member can show vulnerability amongst their other teammates and they don't get made fun of. That's a good thing, isn't it? In that case, they're going to be able to trust those people. They're going to be able to be vulnerable in front of them. They can say what they need to say, even if it's something people don't want to hear. And no one's going to ridicule them, right? No one's going to put them down or dismiss them. So a team is a social structure, and we need to build trust in that structure very quickly. There are many ways we can introduce vulnerability. We could have each team member acknowledge, hey, this is where I did something wrong. This is where I made a mistake. Maybe they make a mistake over the course of a sprint. They own up. And this is what we do in retrospectives. And that's why in the very beginning, when I was talking about Agile, I told you we think Agile Vegas. Whatever happens in the retrospective, it stays there. And that's how we can be vulnerable. We can talk about how we botched code or how we did something wrong. And we know that no one's going to kill us because there's that trust element. And that trust element needs to be developed. And that becomes the bedrock for everything to do with conflict. I mean, when you are trusting of your team members, kind of reduces the climb to resolving conflict. You get what I mean? And that's why I said in the very beginning, the way we tackle conflict, our mindset, it has to be shifted from beating people over the head with a stick and forcing them and stuff like that to one of collaboration in the world of Agile. Okay? So in the world of Agile, it's very different, but in the world of predictive, if there's not enough knowledge, we might go from having the right mindset at first to thinking about what you've heard many, many times in the world of the PMI. We call it the strategies for conflict resolution. You know, withdraw, avoid, smooth, accommodate, compromise, reconcile, force or direct, and confront or problem solving, which people will call collaborate. We've heard this so many times. But I'm not diminishing it. And I'm not saying that this is not an important piece, right? For those getting ready for the exam next year, it is very important. And that is why I want to touch on it just a tiny little bit, just a tiny little bit, just a tiny little bit. So let's talk about the 5 strategies for conflict resolution, okay? So the first one that you see there is withdraw or avoid. This is when you retreat from a conflict situation. It's almost like running away from a conflict situation. You can avoid it, but you could return later on. See, and that's why we call it withdraw or avoid. So if there's conflict, instead of addressing it immediately, you could withdraw to cool off, and then you can re-engage. There's absolutely nothing wrong in that. Second one is smooth or accommodate. There's a key word I want to show you. Why don't you follow me to the Pmbok guide? This stuff is there. As our friend, I believe it was Leo, asked on YouTube. This is still very relevant for your exam. So let's go on down to page 349 in your Pmbok guide. It says, there are 5 general techniques for resolving conflict. Each technique has its place and use. Withdraw, avoid, but then we have smooth or accommodate. Note the key word. The key word there is concede. This is when you're conceding your position to the needs of someone else. See? So we've got withdraw, avoid, we've got smooth or accommodate. And hopefully this will go quick as you're following me in the Pmbok guide now. The next one is compromise or reconcile. Searching for solutions that bring some degree of satisfaction to all parties in order to temporarily or partially resolve the conflict. The approach occasionally results in a lose-lose situation. We've got force or direct, pushing one's viewpoint at the expense of others, offering only win-lose solutions. But watch this, the key thing and forced through a power position to resolve an emergency. So think about it. There's an emergency. You need to shut it down. You got some conflict. You could use the power position to just get it shut down because you know it's in everyone's interest. Human lives at stake and things such as that. The last one is collaborate, problem solve, or confront. You hear those terms being used, confronting. You're confronting the issue, not the person, the problem, not the person, the conflict, not the person. And the PMI says incorporating multiple viewpoints and insights from different perspectives requires a cooperative attitude and open dialogue that leads to consensus. And this is largely what we've been talking about in the world of Agile. The world of Agile, like I said, things are very different. The emphasis, what you're thinking about, right? And that's why it's such an important session. Retrospective should be done in waterfall projects as well, but the kind of retrospectives where people feel vulnerable. People feel, okay, that's okay. You can talk about that. I can talk about that. And it allows for a collaborative and problem-solving mindset. You see that? So we should do this. Can you imagine building your team and you're not just focusing on building the product, you're still focusing on building a great team. The productivity you get out of a retrospective is just enormous. It's huge. So in a retrospective, you just have to get the team to admit, or get the team members to admit, yeah, I did something wrong. Raise their hand and say, okay. So in this sprint, I botched the code. I skipped the process. I didn't do what I should. I acknowledge I did it. Thank you for helping me out. This is what I'm going to do to prevent it in the future. You've acknowledged that you're going to do something about it, and you're not going to do it next time. This is how conflict gets resolved in the world of Agile. See, those are very powerful things to help a team. That really helps also in managing or even preventing negative conflict. We talk about conflict being positive in some instances. Yes, when it is properly managed, when someone comes out even before you could get the rotten tomatoes thrown at you, you're saying, I did that. That was my fault. See? It's really refreshing because in the world of PMP, let's be honest, we talk about conflict in this robotic way that I'm showing you on the screen, withdraw, avoid. People are not robots. All right? It's like here are the theories of how to do it. Smooth, avoid. Some of these are great to use, but honestly, when conflict hits you in the real world, you're not going to be thinking, I'm going to smooth over that. Well, I'm gonna use a power. No, you're not. You just do, and it's in the mind. You train yourself, but in the forefront, you want to think about people and interactions over processes and tools, customer negotiation over contract negotiation. You want to collaborate. You want to get the team's mindset in the right place. That is exactly what I'm talking about, my friend. So I'm not diminishing, don't get me wrong. I'm not pouring hate on the Pmbok guide, but I'm saying that as you go into this new exam, the way we think about things has to change. It's more dealing with humans, right? And as you're dealing with humans, you got to be fluid, you got to be dynamic, you got to be agile, okay? Now, with that said, let's take a look at a few more components of this topic of conflict resolution. Few ideas. You need to get to the root cause. Don't storm off or be defensive, right? Control your emotions. Even if you're walking away, don't storm off, right? Don't dwell on it. See it from the other person's perspective. Active listening is key. Use open-ended questions to get to the root of the conflict. Let the other party feel heard and agree on something together. Let them know you want to find a solution, and don't think right versus wrong. The key thing, as I've been saying over the past number of minutes, you got to work together. You got to work together in this world. You got to work together. That is how conflict becomes productive, right? And that's why you often hear, which of these is the most productive conflict resolution approach? You even get that on some of the exams. Well, you get that on the exam because it's true. Collaborating, the mindset, should be overarching, not just using in the last method. No, even when we're using smooth, accommodate, whatever, the overarching idea should be one of, I need to work with this person, or this person is not necessarily my enemy. Maybe the work is the problem. Maybe it's not the person, you see? So let's talk about the propensity that people have to solve conflict. Some people are propelled to satisfy their own needs, and some are not. Some are not. The guy at the top, he wants to satisfy his own needs. He doesn't want to satisfy the needs of anyone else. The guy at the bottom, he's going to concede. You can already see from that flag. The guy at the other end of the spectrum, he is probably going to work on a method that allows the other person to have some consolation. The lady at the top, she is definitely she's gonna collaborate for sure. You can tell, just taking a look, right? But how do you know this? Well, let me introduce you to the Thomas Killman conflict mode instrument. When you think about compromise or reconcile, it's right there in the middle. When you think about force or direct, that guy with a cigar, he's a bad guy. He wants to force. Definitely. You can tell. He looks like a mobster, actually. You see his mugshot? That guy is a mobster. So it's all, all for him or nothing. And then when you think about collaborate or problem solve, you can tell. They want to help you. They want to satisfy your needs, but they're not conceding. They're not conceding, right? When you think about the person at the bottom left, that person's running away altogether. And then when you think about someone who is so focused on the needs of others, I'm going to concede, I'm going to give you something, those accommodate or smooth. So as you think about the conflict, you got to ask yourself, what is the underlying relationship? How far gone is this conflict? And the questions that you encounter, they will point to this. I know I'm sharing a lot of theory with you, but this will help you, trust me, when you find questions on the test. There are three basic attitudes towards conflict. One, conflict is inevitable. Agreement is impossible. So we cannot but have conflict, right? The second mindset is conflict is not inevitable. See? But agreement is impossible. And then the last one, though there's conflict, agreement is possible. You see that? So these three mindsets give rise to these attitudes. Oh, agreement is impossible, power struggle. Or agreement is impossible, just give up, just walk away. Or agreement is possible, let's problem solve. And how do you problem solve? Splitting the difference. How do you get to a point of compromise, bargaining, mediation? What about peaceful coexistence being key? You see, these are all different mindsets. So some people, it's all or nothing. Some people, they're somewhere in the middle. Some people run away, and other people really want to solve the problem. So when you find questions on the exam, they could be of a nature like this. Two team members are arguing about a technical subject, which is causing a major delay. You apply a technique to assist them in searching for solutions that bring some degree of conflict, some degree of satisfaction to both of them in order to temporarily or partially resolve the conflict. Which conflict resolution technique does this describe? Okay, now usually I'll give you the timer, but I'm not going to do that today. I'll just show you the answer. Page 345 in the Pmbok guide. Go check it out. You'll find what the answer is. Okay, it is a direct cutout of compromise. All right, so the answer to that one is A. Let me show you one more. Our time is almost up. I have a hard stop coming up really quick. Let me show you one more. This is another one. You are a manager in an organization using a direct approach in a conflict situation. For which reason should a force or direct conflict resolution strategy be used? We talked about this as well. I could play the music and give you 1 minute, 12 seconds, but we're not going to do that. We're going straight to the answer. The answer to this one is C, to resolve an emergency. Okay? So my friends, we have come to the end of this very, very long, if I might say, review of just one. I just wanted to take you through one of the tasks, but you see how much work I needed to do to get you to see that. Oh my goodness. I feel like sharing one more question with you. Let me go ahead and do that before I hop off here. Your team is currently going through the performing stage of team development. This can be described by one statement. Choose it. And if you do the homework and read through the guide, you realize that performing, the key word in performing is interdependent. And that's a clue I'll give you. That's a clue I'll give you. All right. So interdependent. And that points, of course, to your option B. All right. So my friends, in closing, why don't we take a look at what we have covered so far? For those people who are taking the new exam, it's very important that you understand each task and that you understand the essence of the task. Okay? Manage conflict, interpret the source and stage of the conflict, analyze the context of the conflict, evaluate, recommend, reconcile the appropriate conflict resolution solution. And don't forget, it is very important for you to understand the frameworks that I showed you. I showed you the framework for Scrum really rapidly, and you can hang a lot of the Agile concepts on this just to make sure that you have a good base. And in the very beginning, I also talked about the page 25 mantra. So page 25 right here, talked about this, page 25. And then we talked about the Pmbok guide mainline. And I told you that this will be a very helpful framework for you to hang the predictive concepts on and understand a wider scheme of things. But as you can see here, there is so much stuff to talk about, okay? For those of you who are keen on going for training, I mean, you see, I don't pull any punches. I go the full distance. I'm not trying to make it pretty. I'm telling it to you just like it is. If you want to be part of this training, I want you to send an email. Send an email. We're starting training for 2021. Send it to support@praizion.com. All right. If you want to be part of the 2021 training. All right. If you want to be part of the current training that's happening now for 2020, you need to go on down to pmsucceed.com. All right. That is the training happening now for 2020. And if you're watching this in 2021 and you want training, coaching, mentoring for either your project management career, or you want to take this beast of a new exam, then the place I would recommend that you go to when we finally put up all of the information is Project Management Masterclass.com. All right, that website's going to be up. When you go there in 2021, you can sign up for a project management masterclass. Now, this is why I would advise you to be in the project management masterclass. It is going to prep you not only to get good with the concept for your PMP or your CAPM, but it's going to make you a formidable, pragmatic. You know what pragmatic means? Someone who can make things practical and do. By the time we're done with you, you're going to be a pragmatic PM. You see, the problem with a lot of training these days is they're trained by pop-top people who come out of the certification mill. They don't have experience. They've not been there, done that. And they're trying to train you just for an exam for you to get through. No, 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 no. In the project management masterclass that we're having in 2021, you are going to learn the nuts and bolts of Agile. You're going to learn how to facilitate teams in this crazy pandemic environment. You're going to learn how to develop work breakdown structures in a collaborative fashion. You're going to learn all about the product backlog, the sprint backlog, Kanban, scheduling, procurement, stakeholder engagement, leadership, everything. So if you know anyone that wants to take their career to the next level, it's not just about getting certified. And I know this firsthand because I competed against many people who were certified. They didn't get the job, I did. Why did I get the job? Because I was able to practicalize what I did. So this isn't the case of, oh, well, just come on for training, want to get you PMP certified. No, 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 no. We want you. Roy and I, we want you to know the details so that whether you are in the corner of your house on a Zoom, you can command the attention of executives, of team members to collaborate in the world of Agile or in the world of predictive, whichever one, or hybrid, whatever you're using. All right. So I hope this webinar has been of help to some of you who feel, I don't have any direction. Don't worry, we'll give you direction. We'll show you where you need to be. All right, so think about this as episode 1 of 40. There's a lot more coming, all right? But we just wanted to present this to you today, get you into the zone to understand what exactly PMI is about to do. And hopefully, next year, 2021, those of you who are not able to do it in 2020, you will get certified then. All right. Those of you who are taking it now, go do it. I know you can. You take care, my friends. Thank you very much for joining me. This information will play again in a few hours, but right now it's time to say bye. And don't forget to visit those websites that I shared with you a few moments ago. And hopefully we'll all get to the point we want to in our project management journey. All right. You take care, and don't forget to hit like, because this video will not go away. You won't see it for some time, but then you'll see it again. And that's why you want to add it to your likes so that when it's back up and running on the YouTube, you will see it. Okay. In addition to what I've presented now, you're also going to be seeing a lot of videos later on today. You're going to still on this same stream. You're going to see a lot of video about project management basics. So hopefully this will be a repository for those who are just trying to find their way, not knowing this crazy maze of Pmbok. What should I do? We got a lot of stuff coming up later on today. So I want to bookmark it, come back in about a couple of hours, and there's going to be some more programming still on this video. All right, you take care and all the very best.